Hey guys, what is going on? Hell, this is your old pal CHH, and we're back here again with another video. Man, I gotta talk to you guys about something because I don't know how to feel, what to think, or what to expect. I really don't. As Friday the 13th fans, we need to discuss this, and we need to kind of get ahead of the curve, so to speak, because this is going to be interesting, what happens this year. And the truth is, there's a few things that could happen. There's about 3 things that could happen. And I'm not sure which one is the worst case scenario. I really don't know. Now, let's get into it. So, guys, so far, we've had 2 Friday the 13th movies come out on 4K UHD. Excuse me, Paramount movies come out on 4K UHD. As you know, we just did reviews on Jason Goes Straight to Hell, and we did reviews on Jason X, where I basically said Jason Goes to Hell was the better of the 2 in terms of features and in terms of new features, that is, exclusive to Arrow, in terms of the restoration. I found Jason X to be the least upgrade worthy in terms of picture, but I love the movie. You know, that's fine. That is fine. You know, it is what it is. And I actually think that the remake is the best out of the 3, the releases. I did a video comparing those 3. If you guys want to check that out, please go to my channel and just look up Planet CHH ranking the Arrow Friday the 13th releases. I did that video. So guys, let's go back in time to 2021, was it? We got this. We had the 4K announcement of the first movie on 4K UHD. This was an interesting one because it seemed like a lot of people were not happy with this one. Now, I'm going to kind of reference something about this that I want to talk about, and I want to open it up to the comments to have people's perspectives on this. A lot of people said that this movie didn't look right. They screwed something up, that this movie was, quote-unquote, way too dark. It's interesting because I think visually they're not wrong. The thing that I wonder about is, was this the actual true home video release that was closest to the original theatrical run of the film? Or was it a botch? Was it legitimately just too dark? That's the question that I have, that I'd like to know. And the reason I bring that up is because, for what it's worth, I talked to some people that are, I don't want to call them old, but they were around when that movie came out, and they'd seen screenings of the film throughout the years. You know, they still do those now. They have 35mm prints of the film that they do these kind of events for. And some of those people have told me that is how I remember the movie looking. The movie was really, really moody and darker compared to what I experienced on home video. It could be hearsay. You know, you can't really prove or disprove that. It's hard to go say, okay, let's go back in time and watch the theatrical run of the film. But in essence, a lot of people were not that happy with it. And then things changed, but didn't change when I think it was the following year, or the after that, they released the original film again. So obviously, Part 1 sold well enough to where we were able to get 2 physical media releases of this film. Here it is. We've got Part 1 right here again on Steelbook. Now, this is something cool they did. They teamed up with Waxwork, and they released a Steelbook which has the original artwork, which is, you know, basically that artwork on it. And they also did a bundle where you could get the vinyl, which the soundtrack to the original, I think, is the best soundtrack. Besides Part 3. Part 3's disco theme is amazing. And boy, do we have to talk about Part 3. We have got to talk. That's what this whole thing is about. Friday the 13th, Part 3. So, let's get into it. This came out. It is what it is. So, it was kind of a rocky start for Friday the 13th on 4K. Now, here's where things get interesting, and I can't even deny that I'm scratching my head at this. Friday the 13th, Part 2. Well, I have it. It's right here. Doesn't seem like this should be a big deal. Well, it kind of is a big deal. Now listen, I'm able to get some Paramount stuff to review, and that's all fine, well, and dandy, but that doesn't mean that I can't criticize some of the things that they do decision-wise, and if anybody from Paramount sees this, well, look at this video as just some suggestions. The number one question I have is, why is this coming out in a Scares box set? Now, the rumor I heard was the reason they did this is because it made it a lot cheaper for them to be able to produce and do the restoration work, so to speak, for this release. Now, here's the thing about this release, guys, that I can't even deny. Please go and watch my review for this. I'll be honest with you, so far out of all the Friday 4Ks, hands down, Part 2 is the best one. This 4K looked incredible. And I was so nervous watching this when I had the Scares box set, because I was like, man, the last thing I want to do, because I'll be honest with you, my fandom might have got a little bit of the better of me on the first one, and I did say, listen, guys, I was able to have my 4K on Part 1 look good. I did a little bit of adjustments on the TV. I swapped the HDR dark to HDR brighter, and I had no issues with that, but people were not happy with that. They thought I was making excuses, and fair enough. Fair enough. But I still enjoy the 4K for Part 1, but here's the interesting thing. Part 2 looked phenomenal. Phenomenal. And it just is a weird situation that it had to be part of a box set. This is the slipcover that it came in, because the Scares Volume 2 all kind of featured this similar style of art. Now, this is not a bad priced box set now. I think you can actually get the Scares box set fairly cheap. And with that, I'd say go for it. There are some good titles in there, Breakdown being an amazing title in there. It's a Kurt Russell movie, and it's really a thriller, not necessarily a horror film, but I consider thriller to be a part of the horror genre. So for me, it's no harm, no foul, but it is what it is. Also, there is it could be an Italian or a French or just a Europe release in general. I don't know the exact location, so to speak. I know it's across the pond from America, so to speak, but there is a singular release of this. I don't think it had any sort of slipcover, if that's important to people, but there is a singular release for this that you can get off the Diabolics and probably the Orbit DVDs. And if that is something you'd prefer to do, look into that. And of course, it's going to be the same restoration and everything. It's all Paramount. But that, I believe it's all Paramount anyway. Yeah, it is all Paramount. It is Paramount. But that's the situation with Part 2. So this is where things get interesting. And this is why I want to talk to you guys, because, what's going to happen this year? Are we going to see another Scares box set, maybe with a new Friday the 13th? Or are we going to see what they did with Part 1? Are we going to have a re-release of Part 2 with the Steelbook? Maybe they'll do a Waxwork Records combination pack again, where you have the availability to order just the Steelbook with the new artwork that was featured on the Waxwork Records vinyl. Or you could do the bundle where you can buy Part 2's 4K with a vinyl from Waxwork. That's one situation. The other situation we could be looking at is nothing this year. Maybe they'll do a Scares box set Part 3, and there'll be just different titles in there, and then that's it. Or, and this could be the absolute worst situation for some people, we get a Part 3 4K. Now, I know what you're saying. Why is that the worst situation, Christian? Here's the thing that I don't think a lot of people think about. And if you do, then I'm not talking to you directly. Part 3 was filmed in 3D. Now, from what I understand, the technology back then was different from the way 3D is done in latter day. For instance, if memory serves, I think I might have saw World War Z in 3D at the IMAX. Now, whether that was shot as a 3D movie or not, I don't remember. But another situation could be Texas Chainsaw 3D. I saw that in 3D at the movie theater. The last thing you would ever think when just watching the home video version of that is, wow, this is a 3D movie. I mean, you can tell the shots that were meant to be 3D, but when you're watching the film, it just looks like a crisp, high-definition movie. Now, movies back then, I think the cameras that they used were very specific for the technology of 3D, and there's no denying that those cameras altered the looks of these movies. Let's go back and talk about Part 3's image quality. Nobody has ever, in my opinion, said that Part 3 looked the best out of the first 4 of those 4K restorations from the Friday the 13th Scream Factory box set. Most people said it was Part 3. Part 2, not Part 3. Interestingly enough, like I just said, Part 2's 4K looked phenomenal. Here's the situation we can be in, guys. Let me show you a release in my hand. This right here is Jaws 3. Jaws 3 on 4K UHD. Why am I holding this and why am I showing this? This is probably one of the most hated 4Ks of 2024. I believe it was 2024. If not, it was 2023. Excuse me. Time flies very, very fast nowadays. What they did on that release was a AI restoration where you can clearly tell that what this movie looked like from the way the camera shot it was not what this showed. And as time has gone on, I somewhat understand why they did that, and I also have my opinions of why they shouldn't have done that. Now, why do I understand a little bit why they did that? Because those movies shot in 3D, I've yet to see a movie that was shot in 3D back in the 80s look good at all on any format. And when I say good, I mean exceptional. For instance, Parasite, Jaws 3D, Amityville 3D, and yes, Friday the 13th Part 3 in 3D are very impressive when watching them in high definition. Or DVD for that matter. I'd say that most of the releases of the other films look better, like Part 2, 4, 5, 6, they look better than Part 3. That type of technology, what they shot that movie with, I think doesn't benefit the look of the film in 2D whatsoever. So, if you remember this release, my worry is, let's say we get a Part 3 release this year for Friday the 13th. What if they use the same technology and do this sort of AI upscale? It could be disastrous. I think fans could be so mad. Now, I'll tell you this. If they do Part 3 in 4K this year, and they do it properly, what does that mean? That means that they stick with the film elements and just restore it in 2D the best way they can, the way Scream Factory did with their release for that 4K scan, if you will, for the Blu-ray. If they do it that way and do it properly, I don't think anybody is going to do their lists at the end of the year for the best 4K releases and have Part 3 on their list. That's fine, in my opinion. I think people want to own the movie in the absolute highest possible way. But the issue is if they do this AI technology stuff for Part 3 like they did on this release, now mind you, this was Universal, this is Paramount, apples and oranges, but I don't know. We don't have a whole lot of examples of this 3D kind of technology being done for physical media releases. Could that be detrimental to the future of 4K Friday the 13th releases if they do this AI technology and people revolt and they hate it? In my opinion, I think it's a safer and better bet to simply try to remaster the film in 2D and as best as you possibly can. I think people would prefer to have the movie come out, not look AI'd whatsoever, but rather just not have it on their top 10 lists of the year for 4Ks, as opposed to altering and changing physical media history the way this did. I understand the experimentation of it, but I don't think at this point, especially when we're talking about sequels, to take risks and do things that way, because at this base, ironically, this is a Part 3 as well, fans and physical media collectors are buying these. Part 1 has the crossover appeal. I would imagine that, Part 1 highly outsold Part 2, granted apples and oranges again because this was sold in a box set as opposed to individually, at least in America. But I think crossover appeal, people that are casual movie collectors or buyers probably bought Part 1. I don't think that's going to be the case for a Part 3. So the question is, what are they going to do with this restoration for Part 3 if and when it happens? And what's going to happen? We could get no action this year. We can get a re-release of Part 2 in a steelbook possibly with maybe another one of those Waxwork Records collaborations, or they'll go to Part 3 for the box set. And here's the thing: if they announce this scarce thing with the box set, that worries me as well, because then what are we looking at for the future? Does everybody have to buy a box set every year with different movies to get a Friday the 13th film? That doesn't seem fair to me. So we need to brace ourselves, is what I'm getting at with this situation. We desperately need to brace ourselves, because Part 3's 4K from Paramount, it could get ugly. I hope it doesn't. I really hope that they just stay the course and try to remaster it the way Scream Factory did and don't do any AI stuff, because it could be disastrous. But that's where we're at with all this, guys. I mean, time's going to tell. We'll get some news later this summer, maybe around August, September, about what's going to happen with Friday the 13th. But That's where we're at. But I think it's important to talk about because people need to kind of be aware of the history of this AI stuff, specifically being done on 3D films. It's an interesting watch for sure, but I think film collectors, they don't like it. And I can't say I'm in love with it either. So that's it for today's video, guys. I wanted to discuss that because I think it's important to know and to think about and kind of just brace yourself for. But let me know what you think. Let me know what you would prefer happen and what you would prefer not to happen with this whole thing. I'm always fascinated by this. So thank you guys for watching this. Tell me your thoughts down below. And until next time, this is your old pal CHH. Take care. Huge giant thank you to all of my Patreon supporters. Without you guys, this would not be possible. To get behind the scenes photos, videos, music, private live streams, and much more, you can subscribe to my Patreon for as little as $1 a month. Thank you to my patrons.